Comparison is the thief of joy. It's a phrase that I've heard before, and perhaps you have as well. I don't know where it comes from, but as I'm going back and looking at my drawings this morning, putting things together for this sketchbook session, taking a look at old drawings, it strikes me that one of the things that keeps me from making art or robs me of my happiness in the moment is when I finish something and then immediately compare it to someone else's work. It's really easy to do though. We have access to more art now than we ever have before. In fact, you, dear stranger, are watching this art happen on the internet. And I am not you. I am a different person. Perhaps you are watching my artwork come together and thinking, well, dang, I wish I could do that. I do the same thing with others. And of course, it seems funny to me to consider that someone might be watching my artwork and go, man, how do I catch up with this guy who's got all the answers? Because I look at my own work and I know where the flaws are. And in fact, I probably see more flaws than are actually there. We are our own worst critics so frequently. So many times in my classroom, I had critiques or presentations of some kind. And students would get up and they would give just a couple seconds of feedback on their own work. This is what I was trying to do. This is how it turned out. Sometimes they would actually take a couple minutes and tear their own pieces to shreds. But inevitably, I would get a chance to give feedback. And more importantly, the other students would have a chance to give feedback. And pretty much across the board, they would be flabbergasted by the positive feedback that they got from their peers. Because when you've stared at your own piece of art for hours, and then you've dealt with all of your own insecurities, all of the strange little voices in the back of your head, calling you all manner of names and pointing out every single error in the piece, you forget that the people who are viewing your art are not you. They are other humans who are seeing it probably for the first time. They are coming to that experience with their own life, with their own references, and they are just seeing the final product. Sometimes this is disheartening because it feels like they're not getting the full picture, but far more frequently, they simply see the artwork for what it is. See, we as artists often get lost in the process because for us, the art is not just a product. It is the culmination of time, experience, desire, and it's also the memory of everything that we put into it. I often look back at sketchbooks and have these nostalgic spikes and remember where I was when I drew that piece, what was going through my mind. In this particular drawing, I remember I did this the same day as the plasma one, which is right above it, and I was getting a little bit tired of the constant drawing. I was doing maybe 2 hours of drawing a day at this point just to finish Smogist. But when I got to this one, I decided I was going to take it easy. I was going to do something that was a side profile, which is a lot easier for me. I found a couple good references and I just got to work. And this drawing just kind of flowed out of me. It felt pretty easy compared to a lot of the other ones that I've done. And that was really rewarding in the moment. And this is where comparison, that nasty thing, comes back into the frame. Because often in the moment, working through a piece, we are enraptured with it. We are excited about the process. We are engaged in the flow state perhaps, and we're simply enjoying what we're doing. But after you finish, especially after you walk away and come back to it, you're seeing it for the first time, not as the artist, but as observer, or perhaps just not as artist only. And in this moment, you have the ability for the first time to compare it to your expectations. And then next, you have the ability to compare it to other pieces of artwork you've done, and then finally, to other people's artwork. And herein lies the problem. Because there isn't really anything productive that comes from the comparison. Sure, if you compare your piece to others, you know how far you might still have to grow. You might understand that there is a ceiling to painting or drawing, and that is valuable. When I was first learning how to play guitar, it was really beneficial to listen to other guitarists, not to compare myself to them and feel bad, but to simply know I can keep getting better in this area. I can keep pushing things. Although I can handle these chord structures well and I can play my scales, there are people who can play them cleaner and faster. And that kind of comparison is good. But primarily when it comes to art, we have a tendency to compare ourselves to other people's work. And we find ourselves lacking. And of course we do. We are but one human in a sea of what feels like near infinite creatives. The chances that we would find an artist we admire, one that we look up to, one who undoubtedly has more experience than us, and find ourselves parallel to them is basically nothing. And of course it is. This makes so much sense. And in fact, even when you compare yourself to other people, you are simply comparing yourself to their final product. You don't have access to everything that came before it, the experience, the reference, the sketching. Did they ask for help? Did they seek feedback? You don't know. And so your comparison in that moment is generally damaging. But there's another side to this that I think is also worth delving into, and it's jealousy. Jealousy often comes alongside comparison. I don't know that it's always linked, but I would venture to guess that most of the time when we as artists compare ourselves to someone else, to another artist, and we get that negative feeling, we get envy or jealousy or maybe anger. Maybe we're angry at ourselves because we don't feel like we've progressed fast enough. Maybe we're angry at our teachers for not unveiling the secrets of the universe to us. Maybe we're angry that these other people had access to better resources than us. Whatever it might be, all of those feelings seem to come into this arena of jealousy. We are jealous that someone else possesses a skill we do not. Maybe you're a young enough artist and you still think that they were born with that skill and how unjust the universe is that that happened. But reality is, generally, like 99% of the time generally, when you look at an artist who is better than you, an artist that you are jealous of their skills, those skills were hard earned. Maybe they had an easier time learning those skills than you. But in almost no cases were they just born with something or came into something naturally. And in most cases where that happened, there are often very extenuating circumstances that you did not want to experience. Now, I think some jealousy almost makes sense. It's like a bestial quality of us, some leftover vestigial piece of our beast man nature. And it makes sense. There are artists that I am jealous of. I wish that I was better. But that, I think, is the crux of things. I wish I was better. And that's hard to deal with. That feeling is hard to deal with. And we as humans have a couple different responses that we can take to that. We can sit there with this, I want to be better and I'm not better, and it agitates me, and go, I'm going to be angry at the person who has the skills that I desire. Because that feels better. It's displacing the discomfort. It's taking away from us and it's putting it onto someone else. And in the moment, that feels better. But it achieves nothing. And it sets you up for no progress in the future. Now, you can also turn entirely inward and go, woe is me, I'm terrible, I'll never be able to achieve those things. Or somewhere a little bit more in the middle, where you just beat up yourself for not practicing more. I wish I was better, but I can't keep myself from playing video games. I can't keep myself motivated or inspired, and so I'm just terrible, and I should probably give up. Jealousy is going to point you in one of those directions, it seems, and none of them are good. I don't know exactly what the perfect solution here is, but for me, when I see other artists' work that is exciting to me and I hit that negative feeling of, I wish I could do that. How come they can do that? I have to try to remind myself that for all of my study, all of my research, all of my progress and practice, I do believe that you can learn how to make art, that I can become a better drawer, a better painter. I've done so much work in the last years, I can now actually look at sketchbooks and go, goodness, my recent sketchbooks are so much better than the work from 2 or 3 sketchbooks ago. And this is happening because I'm continuing to delve into things. I try things that are hard, I research things, I try to teach things here on the channel, and I try to teach things that are difficult for me, though I haven't quite gotten into clouds yet because they still are a foe that conquers me. But I've been working a lot on rock and stone, and on trees, and on creatures from different angles than the one I'm doing right here because this is what I'm comfortable with. I can see progress occurring, and that gives me hope that movement can be made. This is a good thing to remember when you feel jealous, when you feel envious of what someone else has, is remember that you can achieve that. Skills seem, by all accounts, to be buildable. You might not be able to do exactly what that other artist does, but you can find a path and you can find a destination along that path that is satisfactory to you. Now, it's going to be painful. And this is another side of it. It's easier to embrace the jealousy and to be upset at the universe for the things you don't possess because it's going to be painful to get there. And it's easier as a human to think that it's just some glorious injustice rather than to realize that, oh, no, you could do that. You just have to put in the time. It's easier to pass blame than it is to build skills. And humans will ever seek the path of least resistance, like water moving down a hill. Be careful. What you desire as an artist and as a creative, you are going to have to build and snatch for yourself. It is not going to be handed to you. You are going to have to fight for it, tooth and nail. But fortunately, you're not fighting other artists for it. You're just fighting time. You're fighting your own habits. You're fighting your own tendencies. Your jealousy will simply handcuff you and keep you from moving forward. It will point you in the wrong direction. And so I bid you dismiss it and focus on what really matters. Alongside this, though, when you look at other people's artwork that feels way out of your league, things that you are not capable of doing, things that you would be tempted to feel jealous and envious of, try to find joy in the fact that you exist in the same place and time that you get to see those things. We are in an internet age, obviously, as you watch this video on the internet, but what we don't often think about is the art that you could see 20 or 30 years ago when I was growing up was incredibly limited. I had maybe 3 or 4 books of art in my house. I could perhaps go to the local library and check out some others, but most of the art that I saw and consumed was in video games and video game manuals growing up because there just wasn't that much that we were exposed to. My inspirations were things like Bomberman and Mega Man and the Metroid games, Warcraft 1 and Warcraft 2, Command and Conquer, Total Annihilation by Cave Dog Entertainment. These kinds of games opened me up to what fantasy and sci-fi and cartoons could be. There was a lot of Power Rangers in there as well. Original Power Rangers because I'm old. The first season that came here to the US. But now, you have access to millions, billions of pieces of artwork, and it's wonderful. So don't be pulled into the abyssal whirlpool and sucked under. Take a look at these pieces of work, sigh, take a deep breath if you need to, and rejoice in the fact that we get to see them. It is amazing and incomprehensible to me that I can find a tutorial for how to draw anything I want, that I can struggle with a new program for 5 minutes and then go, you know what? Somebody else has probably made a video on this, and I can find it. It is amazing what we have access to. And that's just in like the educational sphere, but also I get to see wonderful, beautiful pieces of art at my fingertips at any moment. And I don't even have to be plugged into a wall anymore for it. Growing up, we only had internet at home. I have internet on my phone now that is 10 times faster than the internet that I grew up with, which is nuts. We are in a wonderful time to see art, to be exposed to art, to learn how to make art. And if we can, we should find a way to find joy in that. Not let comparison and jealousy rob us of that joy, but to take heart and realize that there is a wonderful plethora of things that we get to see on a daily basis, like no human in history ever has. So don't give in to jealousy. It is only there to rob you of your joy and to keep you from making the beautiful things that make this world just a little bit better. Well, as always, thank you for listening. I really appreciate it. I wasn't 100% sure where this was going to go. I started with comparison and got a little bit more impassioned than I expected, but it's probably a good thing for one of you out there who needed to hear it. Alongside the beautiful pieces of this internet age is the fact that we now have the ability to have communities online as well. And if you're looking for a little artistic community, I would encourage you to check out the link below in the description to our Discord server. It is basically just a small community of artists who can share work they're working on right now, but also get feedback on it and just kind of rant and ramble about the artistic things that we all have to endure. Thank you to my patrons who are on the screen right now. If you want to check out my Patreon, it's linked in the description as well. It gives you access to exclusive videos, the ability to vote on things that are coming down the pipeline, and to steer the direction of this channel in general. After all, I'm making this content hopefully and specifically for all of you, so that I can help guide you in whatever way I can from my 11 years of teaching experience, but also just being an old curmudgeon-y man who hopefully is helping you avoid some of the pitfalls that I had to endure. Have a good one, y'all. See you soon.